your thoughts on Israel's attempts their attacks against Iran's nuclear weapons capabilities. What's your thought about this? And should Iran be allowed to have a nuclear weapon?
Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon, but we don't need to start big regional wars that could put US troops in danger in order to do it. I've been a supporter of what President Obama did, which was used diplomacy to secure a no nuclear weapon deal. Unfortunately, President Donald Trump ripped that deal to shreds. Iran started developing more nuclear capacity, and now we're in this very dangerous situation, not just for people in Israel and in Iran, but frankly for people around the world and for American troops. That's why I'm a co sponsor of a bipartisan resolution with Republican Congressman Massey saying that Trump cannot go and send US troops to war without speaking with the American people and getting the approval of the United States Congress. The Constitution says the American people, through the Congress, has the power to declare war, and that the president, whether he's a Democrat or a Republican, the president, in this case, President Trump, cannot go get the United States into another endless war in the Middle East on his own.
And what would, in your mind, because there's a lot of discussion right now as to whether the U.S. should or will help Israel finish what they're doing by somehow dropping the 30,000-pound bombs that can destroy the bunker, where, the nuclear facility in a bunker in a mountain. And there's question as to, will the U.S. deliver that to Israel, or will the U.S. just do the job itself? What's your thought about that? Does that in itself require an act of Congress or not?
My entire adult life, we've been told that the United States is just going to do this quick thing or that operation in the Middle East and that everything is going to go perfectly and it's not going to drag us into an endless war. And then it ultimately has. We've had the longest wars in American history here in the Middle East. And so I don't think that it's just as simple, no matter how simple we'd like for it to be, for us to just stop Iran from having nuclear weapon capabilities. I don't think it's just as simple as Donald Trump can press a button and fix everything. It's just as likely that it puts our American women and men in harm's way for years or potentially a generation to come. Iran is no small country. You're talking about a country of many times bigger than an Iraq or a Syria or Afghanistan. So it is not a simple or small thing to go to war with Iran for the Israeli government on their behalf. And when we recently just had a deal that prevented Iran from having a nuclear weapon just a few years ago. So I would strongly encourage that we not go to war willy-nilly anymore in this country. And that second, that we go through diplomatic paths to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon rather than allowing Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel to drag the United States into war for him.
Well, President Trump did try to go that diplomatic route and had urged Iran to come to the table, make a deal, and Iran seemingly dragged its feet. And even today says it's not going to be pressured into a deal.
We should have tough negotiations and truly be committed to those negotiations. And remember that not that long ago, Iran was saying they didn't want a deal, and we sat at the table and pressed them, and President Obama signed that deal. It was Donald Trump that ripped that deal apart. So I would tell the president, and I have communicated clearly, Democrats and Republicans, that we should press harder for a deal rather than allow another country to set our timeline and drag American men and women into war. We shouldn't allow another country to set the timeline for our negotiations.
Israel and the attacks on Iran's nuclear capability. What do you make of this? And should Iran be allowed to have a nuclear weapon?
Well, President Trump has made it very clear, made it clear from day one, that Iran should not had the ability and capability to have a nuclear weapon. Obviously, the intelligence got to be enough to where not only was the United States agreeable to Israeli making the strikes, Israel decided to make those strikes because of the fear that Iran was getting close enough to have the nuclear weapons. And we all know that if Iran received a nuclear weapon, the first target would have been Israel, the second target would have been the United States.
Because there's a lot of discussion now about whether should or will the U.S. give Israel the 30,000-pound bunker busting bomb, and will Israel deliver that bomb itself, even though it doesn't have its own aircraft that really could do it, or have the American B-2 bomber actually finish the job? Where are you on that?
Well, one, that's a decision the President of the United States needs to make in conjunction with Israel. Again, they have the intelligence, they have the briefings, they know the truth, what's going on over there, of whether or not they're at the ability to, again, Iran has the ability to enrich and make that type of weapon, and whether or not it's necessary to go in and destroy it all. So that's a decision the President needs to make.
You would support that, though?
I'd support 100%.
Why?
Why? Because Iran has said, the leaders of Iran have said, that they want to wipe out of the face of the earth Israel, and they want to kill Americans. They are an enemy. And the best we can do is to, if we can't take out an enemy, is to limit their abilities to take out Israel or hurt Americans.
What do you say to those who say that the U.S. should not be guided by Israel's timetable on this?
I don't know that the United States was. No one knows what conversations were had in the last few weeks or months between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Only those two know. No one knows the intelligence than those two of what they found out. And so only those two can make the decisions moving forward.
There's also been a lot of discussion of whether there should be regime change. Israel has openly told the Iranian people, hey, we're behind you if you want to overthrow the supreme ruler. What do you think about that?
Well, I think we've seen Iranians in America, Iranians who live here, who are protesting in the streets in favor of Israel, who are saying that what Israel is doing should have been done a long time ago, and they're in favor of it in hopes that they do get a regime change. So I think there are many Iranians, not only in Iran, but also in the United States, who are for a regime change.